Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Harold Jenkins. I'm subbing for the great Jed Morris, who, as I think many of you know, who was the alderman of the first ward, and I think the chair capital being sold from the line wall. I'm probably the least qualified person in the room to talk about Katherine and her publishing career, but delighted that she was able to join us. As is often the case in a club like on Wednesday, we're fortunate to have in our midst a lot of talented members, one of which is with us today. Katherine Reay is, as I think many of you know, nationally recognized best-selling author and book club favorite. I guess that's a big deal. Her titles include The Printed Letter, Bookshop, Literature and Lattes, The Austin Escape. I'd like to know I'm reading this without my glasses. Katherine's recent publication is The London House, for which New York Times best-selling author Kristen Harmel penned a carefully researched, emotionally human, and written with a sure hand. It is a tale of deeply held secrets, heartbreak, redemption, and a way a family can both help and hurt us. For those of you that read that, I hope you'll agree with that. For those of us that lived in London, the recent book, The London House, is going to be a special significance to all of us. And finally, like you all know, that Katherine holds a BS and an MS from Northwestern, and she graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and has lived in a number of places, including England and Ireland. She's a full-time writer and a mother of three, and so you thought you were busy. We're lucky to have her here, and so thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
So make sure you're on camera. So that everyone sees you. Just making sure I'm on camera. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. You know what? We'll disappear that so they don't have to. You can't disappear that. Okay. So you'll see me up there too. It's wonderful to be here. And thank you so much for joining me on a gorgeous day. I feel like fall came today and it's beautiful. So I hope it stays beautiful. But I'm here to talk about The London House. The London House is my first novel that is a split time with an historical setting, so a historical novel. I usually write contemporary stories, and I believe there's power in contemporary stories. It allows us to sit in the safety of our armchairs and yet enter into another's shoes, walk in their shoes, their footsteps, and look at a contemporary issue, problem, situation, and learn more about it, grow an empathy surrounding it. But yet, I also believe that we cannot fully live in the present unless we either wrestle with or understand our past. And that's both collective and individual. And that's what led me to a split-time novel. In this novel, a contemporary heroine, Carolyn Payne, finds a secret out about her family. Something that happened 80 years earlier, an unfortunate secret. And to find out the truth about that secret, she heads to the London House. And through diary entries and letters, you meet the Waite sisters. The Waite sisters grow up in the interwar years, in World War I and World War II, in the lack of luxury in England. And when I saw this picture, this is how I envision the Waite sisters. They're twins, and there are three women here. I'm going to share a little bit about them. So on the far right, or let's see, left, I have them left to my right. On the left is my grandmother, Elizabeth. And I think she probably embodies in Margaret Waite. A little quieter, shy, turn away from the family. And I have a family, Carolyn Waite, who you'll meet, her twin sister, is probably a little more like Aunt Polly or Aunt Susie, boldly looking at the camera, smiling. This picture is also from the 1930s. It's very glamorous with my great aunts and my grandmother. And these are on vacation in Miami in the 1930s, that picture. But as I said, in the past, you meet the Waite sisters. The novel really gets going in 1938. Now, 1938 is a very significant year in that Hitler is definitely on the move at this time. But what's interesting about it is there is this pervasive desire, need for appeasement and passivity. And quite frankly, before researching this novel, I couldn't quite understand how no one took Hitler seriously. It just felt like they wanted peace so badly they wanted it at any cost. The Munich Agreement is one of those moments. France, Italy, and England all signed Munich agreements giving Hitler his student money, part of now what we call the Czech Republic. And they thought they did at peace with its changing tendencies. However, Winston Churchill said, well, Chamberlain said, quote, peace in our time. And in fact, at this time, and he ran for the House of Commons on a complete pacifist platform in central London, and his desire and promise to his constituency was to disarm the entire British military. And he was voted into Parliament as late as 1938. So these are the voices that are pervading Western Europe, and this is what Caro is listening to. Because I send these girls and split them. Because up until about 18 years old, they have had the same experiences growing up in the same house. But by sending them to France and keeping one in England, I get to split their perspective a little and show different aspects of what was going on at the time. However, in England, Margaret was staying with friend Winston Churchill at the table. At the time, Winston Churchill was not in power. In fact, he was out of favor because he did not believe Hitler could be pacified, and no one wanted to hear them. So he was sequestered during his time working on his writings. But he very famously and publicly said to Chamberlain, you were given the choice between war and dishonor. You chose dishonor, and you will have war. And so that's the sort of the political side. But then the London House will also introduce you to the fashion side. Now, prior to writing this book, I would have told you a dress is a dress, and a sweater is a sweater, and it's just covered. I was completely wrong. Fashion is political, it is social, it is theological, it is existential, it is, I mean, it says so much. And Elsa Schiaparelli was saying a lot through her fashion at this time. Don't know if you know who she is. But she's Coco Chanel's rival in Paris in the 1930s, and really made a slight cut above. Italian-born modernist designer did a lot of very incredible avant-garde work, especially with Salvador Dali, who's up in the corner. In 1938, the lower right, those are samples from her Circus collection. So you can tell Paris was not looking to war, and she is putting out her most extravagant escapist collection. She had a salon, 98 rooms in Place Vendôme, huge mansion turned into a salon. And the opening night of the Circus collection is considered to have been one of the last greatest parties in Europe. She had ladders to the second and third floor windows. She had acrobats tumbling through those windows. She had 30 mannequins, we call them models today, displaying the gowns down the marble staircases. She had an army of sales young women in sleek black dresses with inverted ice cream cone hats on their heads. It was truly extravagant. And also in 1938, she designed one of her most famous dresses. That is Wallis Simpson, the Duchess of Windsor, and that was the capstone of her trousseau when she married a newly abdicated Edward VIII. So that dress, very provocative for the 1930s. 1938, in that center, although it looks orange, it is transparent, and that is the Duchess you're seeing with midriff. The dress also only weighed less than 1 pound. It only had 3 layers of silk, and the only structure was slight, almost fishbone width supports underneath the arms. Now, Dolly wanted the roster to snap upward at the Duchess with all the 7 things. Steph really won that argument, and as you can see, the tail of the family of the Duchess. And I'll tell you, when I'm researching the book, If I can use a bit of fact, I will always use that over fiction because fact is far more interesting. It is 100% true that when that dress was finished, Dolly walked into the salon with a huge jar of mayonnaise, fully intending to dunk the dress in mayonnaise because that's how one eats lobster. So Scaparelli, I gather, is a yelling match of epic proportions. Scaparelli swore she would never work with him again. He did that. And we know he didn't do that because the Duchess was fabulous. I think American Vogue, they were 10 pages, British Vogue, they were 8. They were mad at her for stealing their pen. But, and also, they did work together again. And this record is mentioned in the London House, but I don't have a picture because when you read it, I want you to look it up. I thought it was the tears dress because when you read it, it's very darkness. And I envisioned something white, perhaps, maybe lighter than this, with blues and greens, because that's what tears are, the water with black and white. It is the tears dress. And it is a white silk gown with ricks, and beneath those ricks are red and hot pink and brown, as if you were tearing through the gown into the one beneath. So I really should know that this is Dolly we're talking about here. So it's the tears down. So that's a little bit about the fashion of the time. And I want to show you one more dress before I go on. I mean, we could wear this dress today and we would be the height of fashion. This is one of the Scaparelli's most famous designs. It is the butterfly dress from 1936. Can you believe that? I mean, it's almost 100 years old, that design. And it is spectacular. Karen is the first dress she works on when she moves to Paris. And she sends an early copy of it to her sister Margaret in England. And you know, they're twins. You read it on Paris, probably going to look good on Margaret. And Margaret says to be the most beautiful dress she's ever seen. It embodies hope and love and life. And she puts it on the couch in the bedroom and she never picks it up again. So how should we find out why she never picks it up? Well, peace does not last. And I have to bring Carol home. And that's where we sort of leave the fashion into the spy world, which was so much fun. So in 1940, as war was washing over Europe, Winston Churchill asked his Minister of Economic Warfare, Hugh Dalton, to, quote, set Europe ablaze. Hugh Dalton's answer to that was the SOE. So the SOE is the Special Operations Executive, and that was the first time that Britain entered the spy game. I don't mean MI6 and MI5. Those were intelligence gathering. This is the James Bond stuff, the sabotage. You basically going into a country and wrecking it from the inside. If you're a KGB officer, these would be the illegals. And so they were creating networks all throughout Europe. And they also, at the time, started MI9, which was James Bond's Q division. The quartermaster division made all the spy toys, which FOE used quite a bit of. So anyway, I have lived in England, in central London, from 2000 to 2002. So I knew how I wanted to move my characters around the city. And there's so much you can learn online. As I said, I'd rather use fact over fiction at any time. So when I tell you that a bomb dropped 1 block from the London House at this time in this day, that's because the bomb really did drop a block from where I put the London House on East Square on that time, in that date. Because online, I could access every single bomb dropped during the Blitz by date, location, time, everything. But there's something I couldn't access online, and the SOE documents were one of them. So these are not digitized. They're all in National Archives in Kew outside London. I needed to get there. I just knew that I needed hands-on to form this story. So in January of 2020, I told my husband, I'll be ready in April because I need to know exactly what to get and where to get it. And he said, yeah, we've got one kid who's a senior in high school. Let's take her over. She can see where she lives when she's a baby. Let's go in February to look. So I got all my year passes, I got my files ordered, etc. We headed over in February 2020 for 4 days. And they did like this tour of England, tour of London, we went to shows and restaurants, but I think I had more fun. I spent a day and a half at the National Archives, then a day at the British Library, and then I spent my final day and a half between the Imperial War Museum and Churchill War Rooms. And I got my hands on these files, which are amazing. These are incredible pieces of history, which are accessible in these tri-fold folders that you just page through. And you can see how thin they are because you can see the writing from the preview, from the memo beneath it, through that picture. They're so thin. And in the London house, there's a moment where one character gets annoyed with another because she touches her finger to the signature. And I did do that. My dear Dalton and yours, Mr. Winston Churchill, those are handwritten in pencil. Like, this is history in pencil. And you can face through them. It's quite remarkable. But what was really amazing about that trip is my 4-day race to find answers really informed Carolyn, the contemporary heroine's race to find answers. Because that is what she's doing in London. She's trying to solve a mystery. So something objective happened on October 17th, 1941, that changed the trajectory for family for 80 years. It has been held a secret, it has been shadowed, and it has changed over time. And the question there really is, if she finds out what the truth is, what will that mean? That's going to lead us back to the 3 lovely ladies. Because I think this story really embodies kind of what the London House is about. The secrets we hold, the secrets we share, the stories we do not tell our children, and the stories we do. I think the ones we don't tell can sometimes be the most powerful. So when these 3 were young, their mother died. I guess I would be like the teens. But anyway, their mother died. When they were teenagers, their father remarried. And their stepmother wanted nothing to do with them. So their father gave them to his sister to raise for the rest of their teenage years. Now, what's significant in this, that's a story that my grandmother never told her 4 children in her entire life. My father and his siblings only learned it when at the end of her life, Aunt Susie told her children. And it's really interesting because I think that event had to have affected the way my grandmother thought about unconditional love, fathers, loyalty, family, that had to have ripples throughout her entire life. And yet it's a story that's never shared. That's kind of what the London House is. It's a mystery and the ripples and what happens when we share those stories. That's a little bit about the London House. At my table, there were all sorts of neat questions about writing, etc., and how I developed character. I'm going to run through real quick, sort of my backlist here. And the purpose being not necessarily to sell books, though I do not want poor Erin to carry any back to the bookstore. So definitely visit her. But I can draw out different aspects of writing and publishing as I tell you a little bit. In addition, please at any point raise your hand. We are a small enough group, etc., that I would love to answer any questions as they come up, or you can wait to the end. But Dear Mr. Hunter is my debut novel, and it takes place here in the Chicago area, specifically downtown in Evanston. Sam Moore, the main character, grew up in the Chicago foster care system. She had a tragic childhood, and her self-defense mechanism is to hide behind the personas of literary characters. So she has to lay down that fiction and find her own voice. And Dear Mr. Knight is that journey. Now, in terms of city and placing the story, Lizzie and Jamie is very indicative of that. Lizzie is a New York cat. And I wanted to put her in a sophisticated city where food meant a lot and it was very competitive. The problem is, cooking is a very relational gift. And Lizzie is using her gift, her ability to cook, and she's about to lose her restaurant. She's estranged from her sister, and I wanted her sister to be figuratively and literally as far away as I could put her. So Jane is in Seattle, Washington, where I lived at the time. And there are all the differences that New York and Washington carry are embodying in these 2 sisters. So it's sort of, setting, emphasizing the character.
Jane's going through breast cancer chemotherapy. It is not a story about breast cancer, but I use it as a tool to show vulnerability, show pain, show different things that fit our lives. I have not met a woman who has not been affected by breast cancer, either personally or siblings or sisters or mothers or friends. And 3 of my closest friends shared, who gave me their diaries that they kept during their journeys through chemotherapy. So it was incredible trust, and that informed Jane's tale. First and foremost, however, that is a love story for 2 sisters. There's a lot of great food, a lot of great literature. There's a lot of healing, because if you are going to write about food, you did it best. There's a lot of drinking and eating in this work. The Bronte plot is a coming of age journey, and I do believe that those turning points in life can happen at any age. So, starting in Chicago, a woman who works at a antique store takes a client on a shopping spree in London and Hayward, where the Brontes live. However, she's 25 and has to change her life. She needs a turning point, and her friend is 85, and she needs a turning point. So that's it. Those moments in life happen at any age. A Fortune Unknown Price is really what I say is my most romantic novel. And I mean romance in a very broad sense of the word. It is a novel about chasing beauty in all its forms. I have a young woman, Emily Price, and Emily Price was named after, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've now gone blank on her true name. Okay, who was the woman? Emily? Not know. The New York Times etiquette lady.
Oh, Colonel Fonda?
Nope.
Emily.
Not even close to. Anyway, it was her original name. I cannot believe I'm having this complete one. Anyway, so if you want a young lady to learn about beauty, you of course impetuously marry her off to an Italian. You send her to Italy, where she'll meet this dysfunctional Italian family. You feed her great food. You send her on a scooter across the countryside, and she learns to let go. And it's a book about art and literature and love. The title comes from a portrait of artist as a young man. James Joyce found in that novel, his sort of semi-autobiographical character, that he had to leave home to find his freedom. Emily Price is finding the opposite. She needs to find home, to find that artistic freedom. That was my greatest research journey. I got access to the Vatican Restoration House for that book, and it was amazing. I mean, just to go into these buildings where they're working on 3rd century, 1st century artifacts, and that the equipment they used, just astonishing. And one of them turns to me and she said, "Oh, Daniel Silva was here last week. Did you write like Daniel?" I'm like, "Yeah." Exactly, just like Daniel. So much fun. So the escape, I thought, very cleverly used, because it was my escape from Jane Austen. It was my last book that I was doing of very obvious alliterations towards Jane Austen that are allusions to Jane Austen. But at the time I didn't tell my publisher that. I just named it The Austen Escape and kept it on the list forever. But this is a story about 2 friends who become best friends at the age of 8. I don't know if y'all have a best friend in the age of 8, but even if you can't stand each other at 28, you're still best friends, because that's what happens when you become best friends at 8. So these 2 28-year-olds really kind of can't stand each other, but they go tied together. They go to an immersive Austen experience in back England, where one has an accident and believes she's truly living in Jane Austen's time. And the sidekick of the relationship has to step up, become a leading lady, help her best friend, find out what that friendship means to her, and also find her own voice in who she is. She's also named Mary. And I don't know if you all have read a lot of Austen. She did not like Marys. You cannot find a good Mary in all of Austen. It's crazy. So I decided to redeem the name Mary. So the main character is Mary. The Printed Letter Bookshop takes place in a fictional town, and I wanted to create a town so that I could return to it and I could move characters about that town and add to it as I wanted. So it's really kind of Lake Forest smashed into Evanston, but 45 minutes from the city. So it's located at Lake Forest, but it's got an Evanston to it. In this story, you will find three very different women. One in her 30s, one in her 40s, one in her 50s, at very different points in their lives. And through mishaps, mayhem, misunderstandings, they work in the independent bookstore and try to save that store. So it's really a lot of fun. That is the book where a character came to life. There's a character in that story named Janet. She's the one in her 50s, and she's carrying a lot of emotion. And I knew that was going to be the case. When I started writing her, one of her first lines, I got to that point, and all of a sudden I heard, "I've had hot flashes longer than that service." She's at a funeral. I was like, "Ooh, you've got a little spicy. I think I'm gonna like you." And she continued to surprise me. If you do read the Printed Leather Bookshop, you will get to a point about 2/3 through where Janet will take you to a train station, say the Lake Forest train station, and she will take you there every single morning for 11 days. I had no idea we needed to go there until that scene, and all of a sudden we were at the train station doing something I had no idea Janet needed to do. So it's really fun when a character surprises the author, because if she can surprise me, she can surprise you. And that's really where the magic happens. In fact, Janet surprised me so much and became so alive. And I liked her so much at the end. You will not like her at the beginning, by the way. But I liked her so much at the end. I could not figure out why her daughter disliked her so much. And I tried to warm up the daughter, and she resisted. You only meet her in the Printed Leather Bookshop like 3 times via text and 1 terse phone conversation. And I said, "What is going on here?" So for the first time ever, I returned to characters, and a literature montage is primarily Janet and Alyssa's story. It's Alyssa's story, and she's trying to reconcile what she believes about her mother and who her mother truly is. And I think that's often the way we see people through our lens. And so it's a story also about a young man who's learning the importance of family. So it's 2 main characters. The title comes from Of Mice and Men, George Steinbeck's novel. And that's because at that base level, in fact, all of Steinbeck's writing, he said in Journal Entry 1937, all writing at the base level is about love. And Of Mice and Men is no exception. You know, you put the social context aside or anything that gets people a little squirrely today, and it is about a novel that dreams do not matter if you do not have family to share them with. And it's very tragic of you because that's what happens. There's no family to share them with, so what are the purpose of the dreams? Awful Beautiful Life is a nonfiction book. It's the only one I've written. I will probably not write another because I do love the fiction world. But to briefly tell you about that, it's an incredibly powerful story. A woman named Becky Powell in Austin, Texas. Her husband committed suicide in 2013. She found out that evening that he had taken $38.5 million in an investment scheme from very influential Texas businessmen and politicians. And she had now opened criminal investigations from the DOJ, the SEC, and the FBI against her. So the story is a very close emotional look at Becky because the legal issues were unbelievable to deal with. But it is a story of over about 18 months. She repaid for the first time in SEC history every single creditor back 100% of their net loss. So forensic accounting brought the number down to $21.5 million. Her husband had been stockpiling insurance, $15 million paid out. That is a protected asset. And she gave it to the courts. She sold her house. She did some other extraordinary things. Her lawyers did some extraordinary things. And she was able to stand in her lawyer's office 18 months later and personally hand out cashier's checks to every single investor. And what's incredible about this story is not that everyone's been paid, but what that has meant for her family. Y'all know what happens to Madoff kids. The amounts of money is definitely different. The shame is not different. I can promise you at all. However, all 3 of Becky's kids still live in Austin, Texas. No one remembers what their father did. They remember what their mother did. And she has redeemed their family story. It is an absolutely beautiful Beautiful story. She calls it her book of F words, and it truly is faith, family, fiction, inspiration, fear, fraud. But it's a remarkable story. I enjoy writing that. Then in the London House, and somebody asked if I'm working on a next novel, and there it is. It's got a cover. Little tweaking will still happen. It's not its front cover, but next June I will take you all to Moscow. I have one spy working for MI6 beginning in 1958, and she soon becomes the West's most prized intelligence asset. And another beginning in the 1980s. She's a little more impetuous, she makes mistakes, she gets everybody engaged her, and she works for the CIA. So these two spies, both women, start to circle each other in Moscow. But then, in the greatest act of espionage, on June 13th, 1985, Aldrich Ames hands a list of 25 agents to the KGB. And it's a scramble to get agents out alive. So compromises must be struck if either of these two women is going to get out of Moscow alive. That's next June. There you go. It's a little bit about writing and what I write. But I'm happy to answer any questions you all have about the process, about how I got started, anything. I'm on yours.
My question is, will you write in the future with your main character being male?
When I write in the future, will I ever have a main character who is male? In the book I'm devising right now, a male character will take a stronger lead, but I do not believe my main character will ever be male. You know, to be honest, I kind of take that from Jane Austen. She never had a main character who's male because she said, I don't think like a man, I'm not a man. And you know, that's one reason actually, going back real quick, I have moved 17 times in my life. And I truly don't believe you can understand a culture until you have feet on the ground. And that is why Emily Price is not Italian. My publisher wanted it to be a split point of view novel, with half a novel from her Italian-born husband's Ben's perspective, Benito, his perspective. And I said I wouldn't do that because I'm not an Italian man. And I can play with the misconceptions and the misunderstandings that Emily can bring to that situation because she doesn't understand Italian culture. But I can't myself even say that I understand it. And so I don't think I will ever have a male character name. Other writers do, obviously, but I know my limits. Any other questions?
That betraying that conflict that you told me over here, that I don't know if you know, but Katherine there close by Hollywood producer to look at possibility of turning one of the novels into a movie.
Yeah, so the Bronte plot, no, you're not trying to come, I'm so excited about it, I hope it happens. So a Hollywood producer, and I looked him up, and he's on boards, and he's gonna be a deal. I'm like, oh, look at this. He would like to purchase the Bronte plot to make it into a feature film. And so I'm super excited about that. And also a writer from the Second City is actually writing a screenplay of the Peanut Butter Bookshop. So who knows if that would sell? She's writing a great screenplay, just on spec, hoping she can sell it as, you know, her work for screenplay creation. But so those two are kind of in the works a little bit, which is super fun. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. It's different for everyone, but, you know, honestly, it's depends on under contract or not. So the London House, because I've never written historical, I actually did what my friends thought was a crazy idea. That my imprint at HarperCollins wanted me to sign for another book, and I refused to sign. I wanted to write a book that no one owned. It was my timeline, my story. I wanted to write, and then see if I could sell it. They picked it up immediately, which is great, but it allowed me a year and a half to write that book because they would have wanted it faster. So this next book is under contract after Shadow in Moscow. The idea I'm working with for 2 days now, just came up with it 2 days ago. And that manuscript will be due next June. So that'll be like a 7-month book. I'll be writing more. Yeah.
You said you write about 5 hours a day. I'm wondering what your daily writing time is.
You know, someone asked me that recently, and I realized I don't have a daily, I have a weekly. Because I can't write just an hour or 2 a day. If I'm really going to do that job, it requires me to enter that world. And so ideally 4 to 5. My ideal week would be 25 of writing. Being a writer is different than being an author, I learned. There's a good 10 to 12 or more if I do it my own, but I do with help doing my marketing. And then also, and I don't count research as part of this, but just filling up the well, reading whoever, so you Stanley Tucci's takes, reading other books that I just enjoy. I try to do that at least an hour plus a day as well. So my work week is about a 40 to 50 hour week. Now that said, writing a novel is a marathon. It is not a sprint or a 5K. But when I get close to a deadline, the writing absolutely brings up to 15 hours a day. It is this intense slog where I barely eat. I don't read the story. I made a mistake once going to the grocery store during one of those kind of weeks, walked straight through the glass door, never even saw it. It just popped off its hinges. It was fine. I was fine, but it was so stupid and embarrassing. But you get so into, because you're at the end and you have to finish it. So it gets so manic at the end, and that's when the kids were really nice and they made dinner. Any other questions? Someone asked that earlier. I'm like, they have different personalities, so it's hard. What's so funny though? I'm going to tell you what is not my favorite, and it's the Bronte plot. And I think the Hollywood producers are interested in it for all the reasons I dislike it. So the Bronte plot is the only novel I wrote wrong, and I'm going to admit that. I got my edit letter back, and it was a full rewrite. My editor blasted that novel from top to bottom, and I call it my Lenten penance book, because I received the edit letter on Ash Wednesday, and a full rewrite was due Easter Monday. So I had 40 days to rewrite a 90,000 word novel. Every single word of it, I could say barely anything. But what happened with that is I could not edit myself. I could not check my emotions. It was like writing at the edge or beyond of comfort. And so I think that also actually might be good because the Brontes carry a lot more heat than Jane Austen ever did. So there was this urgency to writing and this sort of letting go of that editorial check in the back of my head. So I look at that book and I'm like, you little thing, you're doing really well, but goodness. And it was actually a finalist for the National Book Award. And I'm like, really, the Bronte plot? But I like them all. I think I had the most fun with the Printed Letter Bookshop. Those 3 ladies are so fun to me. And I also got to experiment with other things. When you read the Printed Letter Bookshop, it was told from 3 points of view. That was new to me. It is also told in 3 verb tenses. And they come together again. And the reason is, it is an examination of living life well in the present. The book was inspired by a line from C.S. Lewis. And the line was, the present is the point at which time touches eternity. So I thought, how am I going to get these 3 women to lay down their past, to lay down their expectations, good or bad, for the future, and live well in the present? Janet tells her story in the present for all the wrong reasons. Claire starts her story in 3rd person past because she has stepped away from her own story. Felt she has lost her relevancy, which I think can happen to women when their kids grow older and that's what they poured all their energy into. She needs to find that spark within herself again. And Madeline tells her story in the past tense for all the wrong reasons because she does not understand her past. And so as these women learn about each other and about themselves, they all come into the present tense. And it was really fun to work with that. So I guess maybe I do have some favorites. Actually, I had so much fun in Moscow too, with all the Russians. So, next year, that's a fun story. And when I started writing it 2 years ago, to be honest, I had no idea who would have. So, yeah,
If you had any, she probably don't. What are some of your favorite authors?
contemporary or, okay, I had a complete crush on literary crush on English novels. I went fangirl on him once, like, I really, I mean, he's only written three novels now. Yeah, 3 novels, but I'll read anything he writes. Now, that said, I thought Delia Owen's book, Where the Crawdads Sing, incredible narrative voice. I mean, out of the gate, debut novel, she did a great job with voice there. Another book I'll read. I'm just now digging into Geraldine Brooks, Very Force. I'm really loving that writing. Maggie O'Farrell has incredible prose. Oh, her English was incredible. Other contemporary writers, you know, there's so many. Stephen King is brilliant. I have to stop at like page 15 of every book except for Ron Writing, which is great. But he's so good visually that he terrifies me by page 15 of him. But I really love it. My most recent book was Taste by Stanley Tucci. His voice was so authentic, so clearly lightly edited because his voice was so strong. And he was a great writer. He laid down his personality with such vulnerability and honesty that I appreciated that. Really good. Anything else? Well, I will also tell you that because I live in town, if your book club does read one of my books, I offer to people I know in your town. I could probably do it in person, but I offer Zoom to chime in on book talks. But anyway. So there you go. That offer is always there. Family and friends. So thank you all so much. I think. Oh.
Thank you all for coming. This concludes our presentation. We hope you'll continue to support our Friday lecture series. We have some, I'm sure, exciting things planned for the winter for those of you that are going to be around. So thank you again for coming, and thank you, Katherine.
Thank you.